Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another AI show where myself and my co host Kevin Kieller will be talking to Sirte Pihlaja, who's the CEO of Shirute, on today's topic, which is AI agents. So stand by for a really great show on an extremely hot topic. Hey, Kevin, how's it going?
Well, it's going great. We're into 2025, and everybody says that this is going to be the year of the agent. So I can't think of a better topic to kick off our first show for 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all been happening, hasn't it, this week? I mean, I know it's not necessarily business to business, but CES has kicked off this week as we record this today. And it's, I mean, there's one brand in the middle of all the conversation and all the headlines, and that's NVIDIA.
Of
And then,
course.
and as you say, agent, or there's so many different ways of I suppose, phrasing AI agents. You've got agentic AI and
Yes.
automate, what do they call it? Automated agents, or I don't know, autonomous agents.
Yes. Yes. Lots of different terms for sure.
Yeah, but for today we're going to call them AI agents. But AI agents were all over CES, and so I picked out a story for us to have a look at that was on CX today actually. But they kind of made a list of some of the biggest AI agent announcements. What did you think to those?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there was like kind of the NVIDIA like had a whole bunch of announcements, and obviously it's in NVIDIA's best interest to drive, more chip sales by putting in place a whole bunch of tools. Although they seem
Yeah.
to be doing quite well in terms of driving chip sales, but so they were talking about they introduced an AI orchestration layer, and I know we're going to talk about that with our guests because when you have lots and lots of these agents, I mean, people have been talking about having a billion agents. You need to have them work together well, and that's the orchestration layer. So NVIDIA came up with some tooling and a tool set to try to drive that. Another thing that they talked about was a partnership with Accenture, big consulting firm that's kind of going all in on AI. I mean, I think like all the consulting firms. But there was a couple of interesting things there. Accenture talked about that they've trained 30,000 professionals around helping their customers deploy AI. So that's a lot of people and a lot of training, which is, I think, a good thing. Accenture also said that it's driven $3 billion of professional services in this, current fiscal year. So obviously they're doing, there must be demand for that. And they also talked about, they're going to create at least 100 plus. They're trying to create at least 100 plus industry agents by the end of 2026. So a lot of, interest in kind of some prepackaged agents that then you can, resell. So I think that that's an interesting thing that I'm sure we'll explore kind of when we start, when we have our guest come in. So, and then a whole bunch of other things in terms of real-time video processing that NVIDIA, so this is, being able to recap by watching a live stream and do that in real time with the more processing power. And then, of course, because everybody has to introduce their own language models, NVIDIA has their own, large language models and what they call VLM, which is a video language model. They call them Llama Nemotron, that's a cool name, and Cosmos Nemotron, respectively. So, more models that we can all plug in and see how they work. So that was a lot of cool information and announcements from NVIDIA.
They certainly seem to be powering a lot of this AI technology and innovation, don't they? With their
Absolutely.
AI blueprints and
Yeah.
well, I like the video thing. I think we saw video last year, didn't we? Coming through pretty hard and fast. But I think this year we're going to see video really take shape. I know we're still waiting for well in the UK actually we're still waiting for Sora
Right.
from OpenAI. I know you guys have probably got that in the US and Canada, but we don't just yet. But I'm looking forward to actually seeing more practical use cases for the video, AI generated video. I think in the workplace. But yeah, so much happening. And the second announcement I saw, in line with
Yeah.
OpenAI, was Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, talking about I suppose he made a statement, didn't he, really, around virtual employees could be joining the workforce as soon as this year, 2025. I mean, what do you think to that? Do you think that's realistic?
Well, I think it's a little bit on the early side. I mean, obviously, it's in OpenAI's best interest to kind of, drive the enthusiasm here. I think Sam Altman also came out earlier and said we have a known path to, AGI, so artificial general intelligence, which is kind of like the holy grail. And although no one really agrees on the definition of it, but, so I think that he's out there obviously promoting this. Yes. So as you said, he thinks that we're going to see the first, AI agents join the workforce. But then, there's other people as well. Like, so McKinsey, another, elite consulting firm, was saying that 30% of the work hours would be delivered by these, AI agents by 2030. So I don't know, maybe that's accretive. So that's 30%, 30% additional hours. So we're more productive, or maybe there's 30% less work for us regular humans to do. And I think, there's different camps on that, but that's very interesting, and as well, you had Mustafa Suleyman, who's now the president of AI at Microsoft, having done some Google DeepMind thing and some of his own thing, but now he's with Microsoft. He's saying that it's going to be, these AI agents are going to, be available and in production in quarters versus years. He said he's seen some great demos of agents autonomously doing purchasing, which is a little scary if you think that, but he also says he's also seen some real car crashes. So obviously not yet, you don't want your agent to plan a trip for you and then figure out that it's maxed out all your credit cards. And so, but once again, he's very optimistic and saying, these problems, these car crashes, as he phrases them, those problems will be rectified within quarters as opposed to years. So I think you're seeing a lot of the leaders in companies and, the individuals who are very optimistic on this, this AI agent is coming to fruition in 2025. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, it's exciting. And I think OpenAI framed them up as operators, didn't they? They call them, they're going to be called.
Yeah, that's their code name for their, yes, that's right.
Sounds very Matrix, doesn't it? Calling them operators, but...
It absolutely does. Yeah, and in this, there is no lack of terms. It's like there's so many terms, and it's like you need AI just to decode the acronyms that are so they're just pouring forth every week. Somebody comes up with a new acronym in this regard.
Yeah, that's right. And that's a segue into the last news story that I just wanted to talk about, which was Google. And Google's going all in on AI, as we know, but they're a little bit more thoughtful in some of the statements that they've been making around AI, maybe a little bit more technical, but, in terms of, acronyms and new terms that I've heard today is like chain of thought and tree of thoughts in line with, the cognitive architecture as a foundation for their platform. So it's all very technical, but what does this all mean? What did you take away from the Google piece?
Yeah, there was an article in VentureBeat that summarized a paper. So Google had released a paper, I think it was just called Agents. So once again, clear and concise. It was released in September. I think it was like just over 40 pages. And it's a really good introduction into what is an agent and how do they work. And as you said, some of the chain of thought and, tree of thought, this is really around agents being multi-step, right? Because up to now you do a prompt and Gen AI gives you some results. But agents really need to be able to execute a multi-step thing over a period of time and use additional tools and additional sources of knowledge. And so I thought that the original paper by Google was quite good. The summary of it in VentureBeat wasn't bad, but it got a few things, I think, a little bit wrong, right? So as they tried to kind of simplify it. So I'd say to anybody, go read this, find the 42-page, Google agent paper it's a great introduction, and they've got some really good diagrams that explain kind of their thinking and their architecture. And certainly because everybody's going to be talking about agentic AI in 2025, if you want to understand it and kind of who's blowing smoke and who's talking reality, I'd suggest this paper gives you a good foundation for that.
Yeah. And today's show is going to be a great foundation for that, because we're going to be talking about AI agents very shortly with our expert. And we're going to be diving into that kind of, I suppose, that multi-agent kind of idea as well. So lots to dig into. But just before we do, it's AI Minute time, Kevin, where, you get the opportunity to share a little bit of knowledge on a new phrase or a keyword within the world of AI. What is today's keyword?
Yeah, so Rob, today I wanted to talk about vector database. I was kind of trying to figure out a term that fit in with these AI agents, but the vector database comes up a lot, and it really in Gen AI and that's important as well with AI agents. So what the heck is a vector database? Well, so it's a database that stores vectors, which are really fixed lengths of numbers. You can think in 2 dimensions, a vector is like an XY coordinate. In 3 dimensions, it's like in a 3-dimensional space. But of course, then they become n tuples because the vectors have multiple lists. So that's why they say just a whole list of numbers along with other data. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to cluster things based on similarity. So this little, diagram here, it's got a bunch of words, and it's really showing in 2D how a vector database would put words like in the light blue, kitchen and vanity and sink kind of in a similar space because they're similar. Whereas on the right-hand side, they have things like charger and battery and drill and tool. Maybe those are related in similarity. And what it lets you do then, when you do this, you use this vector database, it helps you find similar items based on the nearest neighbor. So you can use matrix algebra, which if you took higher level math, maybe you remember from a long time ago, to find out things that are similar. So unlike a SQL database that's more about exact matches, this is about similarity. And so it really helps in understanding intent. So for example, a phrase like I like cats, that should be close because it's similar to another wording, I enjoy felines. And really vector databases, we talked in another minute about retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, and this is really a way that agents and Gen AI can access other knowledge sources. And so vector databases are key to powering this RAG lookup, which allows AI to not only use its training set, but really to access other real-time and other knowledge sources. So absolutely key to effective agents and effective Gen AI in a business context. So there you go.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kevin. Another super useful bit of knowledge for our audience to help navigate the world of AI. But next up, I'm pleased to introduce today's special guest, Sirte Pihlaja, a seasoned CX and AI professional who's going to be sharing her expertise on the transformative role of AI agents in customer experience and workplace productivity. So welcome, Sirte. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. How are you, Rob?
I'm really good. Yeah, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's great to have you here. And, I suppose to dive straight in, Sirte, could you briefly explain, the world of AI agents and why they're gaining so much traction in the world of CX and workplace environments?
Well, the world of AI agents. I'm not sure anybody can really explain that, but maybe if we start by defining what AI agents, how I see them, I think that they are these digital entities that are powered by artificial intelligence, and they are designed to perform these specific tasks that they can do either autonomously or semi-autonomously, which would then mean that they have some kind of approval phase where they are actually discussing the results with human beings. And I'd say that at the moment they're gaining traction in CX and in workplace environments because they are very apt to handling complex, repetitive, time-consuming activities, and they free basically human resources to do more strategic and more creative work. So if we put it in a simple way, you could think that an AI agent is a single worker who has some kind of specialized skills, while this multi-agent network is more like a business unit or team or organization where we have these various workers who each have their own expertise and who collaborate to then achieve some kind of common goal that they have been put out there to solve. And in these networks, these agents work together and try to solve different kinds of problems and scale even operations. And they are very dynamic in nature, I would say. And in the very near future, I think that personal AI and these assistants will become very commonplace. Everybody will have their own digital assistant. So, managing our everyday chores like information retrieval and I don't know, shopping, bookings, all kinds of work productivity related tasks. And in the B2B space, actually, we already have these AI agents that are proving their value as we speak, but because they are negotiating pretty big deals already. I read lately about tens and hundreds of millions of euros worth of deals have been brokered by AI agents. So it's really not kind of something that we should, think that it's something that is coming later. It's some kind of science fiction, but it's rather something that we already have, and it really opens up this new potential for being more efficient, to innovate more, and all of that.
That's really interesting. And in terms of these multi-agent networks, just take me through just very quickly how that compares to me just using, let's say, a bot to improve a workflow, for example. How might that be slightly different in the multi-agent kind of environment?
Well, as I said previously, we are combining the work and the skills of several different agents there. So they are very specialized, and they might even be organized in the sense that you have on the bottom ranks, you have these specialized agents who each have their skills. Then you might even have a managerial line in between, because then what you gain from that is that you'll have if each of these specialized agents are given specific tasks, these managers can then, AI managers, they can see that whether or not the task and the results were actually accomplished before relaying it to some other agent to do some, next part of the workflow. And what you mentioned, this operator is something that is sitting on top of the whole layer of these different layers of agents, and is taking care of the whole collaboration. And this operator is the sort of main agent that is interacting with the human, who is then giving these workflows and tasks for them to take care of. And I would say that the evolution here is going in the sense that we are interacting with this AI agent as naturally as we would talk with human assistants, simply discussing what we need them to do. And we are all of the different big players out there, like OpenAI, Microsoft, Anthropic, Google. They're all now coming up with their multi-agent frameworks, some of them with several frameworks, but also what they are doing at the moment is making them highly approachable by using this voice-based approach, where we are shifting from some kind of point and click kind of user interfaces, which has been the way of us humans interacting with computers so far, into this voice-based communications.
That's really interesting. Kevin?
Yeah, no. So I think you mentioned already an example in negotiation, but I think a lot of people are saying, 2025 is going to become the year of the AI agent, but there are already current implementations, as you mentioned. Maybe could you give an example in the customer service space, and then maybe in the workplace, of AI agents that are already delivering some positive results for the businesses?
Sure. So maybe to start with, we conducted last spring this research on digital assistants, which are also referred to as machine customers. This is a term coined by Gartner researchers Don Scheibenrief and Mark Raskino. And we are doing a follow-up study currently, focusing on some more advanced use cases. But what we did there with these machine customers was that we created this digital assistant for a family, an imaginary family, where Assi, the digital assistant, would then take care of the different tasks and chores that the head of the family would give her or them. I don't know which pronoun you're supposed to be using about these AI agents. But anyhow, so we all together we're benchmarking or assessing the capabilities to serve these machine customers and about 40 plus, over 40 Finnish companies across different sectors like healthcare, finance and banking, like hotels, travel and retail and all of that. And the idea there was that we would try and understand how well these businesses are really equipped to serve these machine customers. And ultimately, the idea there is to, interact with seamlessly with them. But at the moment, I would not say that this is the case. That it's more in the space maybe of personal productivity, where like Google's and Microsoft and all of those big players have opened up like APIs for calendars and emails and that kind of stuff. But to really go shopping out there and do transactional use cases is still a little bit away from now, I would say. Of course, there are very good examples. Again, from Google, I was like astonished when I saw a couple of days ago here what they are doing with their current real-time streaming, because that's like an assistant that you're talking with them and you can actually do whatever you see on your screen, whether it be on your browser screen or some of your applications, I guess, and you can have this discussion with them. And I think that like having that user interface is really changing the paradigm here, what we are talking about. And it is a huge market out there for these digital shoppers. It's an estimated like $30 trillion within the next decade. Wow. So that's like really mind-blowing numbers. But whatever the like numbers estimated, that might go wrong. But the key takeaway here is that it's going to be a huge market. An estimated 1/5 of the revenue will be coming from these digital assistants and machine customers. So really, it is something that I can't think of my life that how could any company, think about losing this bigger proportion of their current business by not, preparing themselves for the rise of the machine customers and AI agents in general.
Absolutely. Now, I know similar to when I work with, organizations, I'm a big fan of experimentation. And I know that you as well are suggesting, experimentation, versus like a strategy, or experimentation then strategy. But can you kind of elaborate on what exactly that means and kind of why you're an advocate of that particular approach?
I'm not saying that I'm advocating to do that only. I'm just saying that you don't necessarily all the time need to start from doing your AI strategy first and then coming up with your responsible AI practices and principles. And putting your AI governance into place. You need to have those things as well. But a good way of initiating the kind of innovation and even like upskilling your personnel is by allowing them to do this kind of short experiments and try to figure out what they could start with as such. Because in today's world, the AI based systems development is something that you do much quicker than you would do like when you were doing all those waterfall based projects back in the day. But at the same time, the part that takes the time that you need for doing the testing and monitoring that all of the parts, bits and pieces are in place really takes a lot more time than it used to. And you can't really know when you start doing whatever your use case is that what is going to come out of it, that are you going to be able to actually support it with current platforms. Another thing that I may be advocating for is that you shouldn't start by selecting a specific platform right now, but rather try to think about the ideas, the concepts, do POCs or pilots with, these just the easiest way of putting it out there. You could just go ahead and do a custom GPT and try out, or even do a prompt and try whether it works or not, to make it as simple as possible, so that you don't invest a lot in upfront. And then take your customers into your experimentation as part of the kind of co-creation activity, because you will never get the same information if you're doing only internal kind of experiments, because you already know what your people within the organization are thinking about these things. So instead, you'll gain much more insights if you do it together with your customers. So that's really helps you refine both the AI solution and integrating it into customer journeys. So it is very beneficial in that sense.
No, and that sounds
and one more thing is, if I may, is that,
absolutely.
That because when you do experiment like this, you'll always gain and upskill your organization, and you'll gain from each experiment. So do remind your leadership team that even though maybe this experiment was a failures in parentheses or quotes, we still gain this and that, learning from it. So encouraging really these teams to embrace AI and reduce the fear of failure by that.
Yeah, no, I'm totally on board with that. That seems like great pragmatic advice. And, I think a lot of times AI is changing the capabilities so quickly that really by allowing, professionals to experiment, that really helps ideation. And, you might figure out a use case that's different than when you started. And that's important because you want to be applying your resources to the best use case.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's certainly no lack of appetite out there in the world right now for artificial intelligence, and the AI agents are raising eyebrows all over the world, I imagine, amongst business leaders. But there are some big barriers to adoption here. We've heard that NVIDIA and all these other vendors are trying to make it as easy as possible to implement and experiment with AI. But what do you see as the biggest challenges that are facing organizations?
Well, I would say that, at least based on what we learned from the piece of research we did, is that currently companies don't have their APIs open. So there's no way for these AI agents to do any transactions to begin with, and certainly not anything autonomously. So that's really what is hindering in that sense, this kind of integration.
Interoperability, I suppose, is it?
Yeah, that's maybe the right word.
Is it similar to I take this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've used Zapier for a lot of years, and that's great for connecting different worlds and different data sources and, initiating little tasks and stuff. I see that kind of like, the ideal platform to connect all these worlds together. Is that kind of what the holy grail, where, you've got a platform that can just easily connect to all these different data sources and platforms for, getting things done?
In a way, but
oversimplified
yeah.
it too much?
Yes and no. Let's say Zapier.com or Make.com, which I use both of them, but more of the time I'm leaning towards Make myself, is more about doing, your automations, but then maybe adding a little bit of spice of AI into that. So that's not really agentic AI, as I would say, yet. Although we might use some of these automations and these platforms that allow for low code or no code integrations in the background to have our agents then, or digital assistants interact with the world. Because one of the main things that AI agents to be able to talk to any, even between themselves maybe at some point, is that they need to have tools and capabilities, and these come from these APIs. So they might have an API that is connecting, like our Assi did, that she was sending the emails based on an automation that was done or created on Make, for instance. But then within this, there are these platforms that you mentioned, like there's several that you can use, like open source ones, and each of these bigger companies like Microsoft, OpenAI, and all of those, they have their own framework. So you have to do a little bit of coding there as well if you want to use those. Of course, they do all have also like visual based, like process kind of design possibilities. But yeah, I forgot your original question here already, but
yeah, I think we've moved beyond that now.
Yeah.
I think it's good answer though, Kevin.
Yeah. So I mean, I think you know, in a previous answer, you gave some advice on how people should start and things you should think about. You know, you said don't get locked into a vendor, but with so many vendors out there, like when it is time and I need to choose a platform, how should businesses, from your perspective, how should they approach the selection? How do you get not overwhelmed by the seeming millions of options when I need to pick a platform or an AI tool set to build out my agents?
Well, I still say that do you really need to, select that platform in the sense that you should start from the concept and what that you want to implement and see whether it's augmenting your customer service processes or automating some repetitive tasks and enhancing these customer interactions, and really focus on those business problems that you aim to solve and the outcomes you want to achieve, and only then start talking about technology but the most important thing, rather than naming any platforms to start with, because that wouldn't make any sense here, because that depends on the actual use cases that you're trying to solve. But what I would like people to keep on their minds is that no one can really predict what these new technologies or what kind of breakthroughs will be emerging next from all of this. So this kind of uncertainty really means that businesses must prioritize being able to adapt their systems. So you must be able, whatever you choose, make sure that you're able to change the large language model that you're using in the background, switching it easily from one to the other, because you might even have, like, between different versions of different LLMs have differences. Right. That then, break your system, and you don't want to have that. The other thing is that whatever you do, you should have, like, to be really future-proof, have this good testing and monitoring in place, because, like, one day it might work perfectly, and the next day when there's an update to some part of your, technical solution, it might just crash, and you're, like, really, really difficult.
And I think that's really good advice, isn't it? One last question for you, Sirte, before you leave today, because we're going to have to round things up pretty soon. But predict the future for me. How will AI agents? I know you just said you couldn't do that, but tell me about AI agents in the future of customer experience. What's that going to look like in, let's say, a decade from now?
Well, I would be foolish to say that in what's going to happen in a decade, because it's nearly impossible. As even for 5 years from now, we'll be likely living in a totally fundamentally different world. So I can't remember, like, how many, like, one internet month equals, I don't know how many, 15 normal years or something like that. And as we see things roll out at the pace they do at the moment, it's really difficult to say what is happening even during this year. But I think that one thing that is certain there is that, the AI that we use today is the least advanced it will ever be. So that's certainly something to take into consideration. And there will, for sure, over the next decade, there will be more widespread adoption of these AI digital assistants on behalf of people in different kinds of context. And I would say that it will also extend beyond, like, customer interactions and include all kinds of, like, even machine to machine communication and this will totally reshape the customer experience landscape, because one day we might not be there to, have those customer experiences anymore, because our robots and our virtual assistants are doing it for us in the sense. So in that, I like what Sam Altman said there in his piece, his blog, that we might have these AI workers working autonomously there. I think that is definitely something that is going to happen pretty fast, because these multi-agent networks that are capable of handling, comprehensive workflows will be there. They will have advanced reasoning skills. They will have, become faster and more reliable. We already see from what Google came out with that it's like light ages ahead of what the preview that Anthropic released in November, December was like. So it is like incredible that this pace that we are seeing at the moment. But I do firmly believe that the businesses that will embrace this transformation and who will be there early adapting there and aligning their strategies will be the ones that are going to be positioning themselves as leaders in this AI-driven world. And I think that customers will also feel that not only are they getting more space for human empathy, because at least we're supposedly not putting all of our time into, doing these routine tasks anymore. But it's really not so much about, automation anymore, but meaningful human and AI collaboration as such. And we do definitely need to help our customers feel confident that we will be there creating responsible AI, so that they can trust and rely on these systems. And therefore it is going to be this responsible AI governance is going to be certainly a competitive advantage.
And we'll underscore that.
I hope you do.
That's a great place to finish today's show. So I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. Kevin and Sirte, it's been great talking to you today on AI agents and everything autonomous agents. It's really, really interesting and fascinating. And I'm sure I speak on behalf of our viewers as well. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone for watching our AI show. If you've got some good takeaways from today's session, do give us a quick mention on social. It's always appreciated. And you can connect with myself, Sirte, and Kevin all on LinkedIn, I'm pretty sure, and maybe even on some other social networks nowadays. But that's it for today. I'm Rob Scott from AI Today. Thanks for watching.